August 28th, 2001, 27-year-old New York City probationary firefighter Michael Garumba loses his life in a fire on Staten Island. He leaves behind a pregnant wife and a 2-year-old son. I remember reading the accounts of this in the paper, and it bothered me deeply. September 1st, 2001, approximately 9 a.m. in the morning. I remember returning home from work after working 24 hours at the firehouse, coming in the door, being greeted by my 5-year-old son, Billy. Greeting him and then greeting my wife, holding my 2-month-old son, John, and giving him his usual kiss on the forehead. And I was off to the shower. I was getting ready for the funeral for Michael Garumba. After showering, I go to my room, and appearing in the doorway of my room is my son, Billy. And he gives me those eyes that say, "You were just gone for 24 hours, and now you're headed out the door again?" And I couldn't give in. And I say, "Hurry up, get dressed if you want to come with me." And he runs off. I go to my closet, and I look for my dress blue uniform, and I can't find it right away. And then finally, in the deepest part of the closet, I find it. Now, that's a good thing. That means I haven't worn it in quite some time. You see, it's usually reserved for line of duty funerals. I remember getting dressed, and then appearing at the doorway was my son, Billy. He's in his blue suit. I didn't have to tell him what to put on. He wanted to be like Dad. I'm taking him to the funeral for a couple of reasons. One, we usually spend our time together. The other thing, maybe he'll get to understand the closeness, the brotherhood of the fire department, what it is to have great friends. He'll see that there. And also, maybe if something happened to me, he'd understand what a line of duty funeral is all about. And we head off. September 14th, 2001, about 2 a.m. in the morning. I wake up in Metropolitan Hospital in New York City, full of sweat, soaking wet. I haven't been able to sleep in 3 days. I am going through so many different emotions. I said, I got to get out of this bed, and I got to write down what's been going through my mind. I remember going over to the nurse's station at that time, and I asked the nurse, "Can I have a piece of paper? I have to write some things down." And she hands me a piece of paper. I laugh, and I say, "No, I'm going to need a tablet." And she gives me a bunch of paper, and I sit down by her at the nurse's station. I begin writing. And again, I don't start with the events of September 11th. I start with Michael Garumba and his funeral. It's still bothering me. And then I get to September 11th, 2001, about 7:30 in the morning. When I show up for the firehouse, I rescue 5 on Staten Island. Walk in the door, the music playing, say no more, Dougie Miller's working. There's a dozen bagels there, and French vanilla coffee made. Nicky Russamondo brings it in every time. Joey Miscali is cooking French toast at the stove. Taz, the little guy, brings in a little pound cake. And my good friend Mike Fiore is working. It's going to be a great day, so we think. And then I sit down at the table, and moments later, the alarms go off, and we're headed out for the Trade Center. I remember entering the borough of Brooklyn, and just before we could enter the tunnel, watching the second plane strike that north-south tower, and a huge ball of fire. Eventually making our way through the tunnel, and arriving in New York, and seeing all the body parts and all, and knowing this is going to be like nothing else. Making my way to the North Tower, where I begin to operate on the 2nd floor. Helping evacuate people, 200 feet to your right, down the stairs, you're out the building. Good job. This going on for quite some time. And then hearing a loud noise from above, knowing something is collapsing, I jump in the stairwell. The noise gets deafening. Everything goes black. I said, well, this is going to be it. And then I'm still alive. And then I hear people screaming on the other side of the door. Help, help. I'm trying to get the door open, and apparently trapped in that area. And with the help of an emergency service cop, John DeLara, he and I began to force open that door, and we get it open. And we go out in that area and recover about 15 people, eventually leading them to the staircase. And then he and I go back and light up the area with our flashlights as people are walking by. And again, we're beginning to evacuate. And in the middle of all this, he says to me, you know, I have a wife and 2 kids, 2 boys. I said, me the same. And that's what we're talking about for the next 15, 20 minutes in the middle of all this. Lighting up the area and talking about our families. And then when it seemed like there was no one else left in that tower, we decided we're going to leave. We're not outside the North Tower 30 seconds, and we hear it coming down on top of us. I take 1 step towards the window. I'm picked up and blown about 40 feet in the air. I remember smashing against the wall, climbing into a window in 6 World Trade Center, hiding under a desk, starting to get buried. And that's when, like that, I said goodbye to my wife. I said goodbye to my son, Billy. I said goodbye to my 2-month-old. And with that, I said, you'll never know your dad. Let me tell you, that hurt like hell. And then it was over. I was still alive, buried amongst all the debris, putting a finger in my mouth so I can create an airway to breathe, and eventually making our way out and down onto the street, going down Survivor Staircase. I remember reporting into a police chief, saluting him, saying, Chief, there's been a collapse. I've lost some men. And him telling me, we've lost a lot of men here today. Get in an ambulance and get out of here. And that's how I wound up at Metropolitan Hospital. I remember getting a call that night from my brother-in-law. He's in Rescue 5 also. Him telling me, Bill, did you get the news? I said, no, what news? He said, all the guys are gone. I named everybody I was working with that day, 12 of us. I was the only one to survive. Hanging up with him, calling my wife calling me. And she's saying to me, did you get the news? I said, I did. She said, what about the other news? I said, what other news? She said, your Uncle Joe was on Flight 93 that went down in Pennsylvania. I remember telling her, give me any bad news you got. It was the first day of school. Maybe my kid failed out. I'd be good with it. But no. I remember the last sentence I wrote was, may I never, ever, ever have to tell this story ever again. I remember getting home from the hospital. Getting home and the block was filled with cars. Little did I know, those people were in my house. Being greeted by my wife in the driveway. My son Billy, hesitant because of my injuries, to come up to me. I told him I'll get better. Him giving me a hug. And then making my way to the back bedroom where my son was sleeping. I remember lowering the rail on the crib, leaning down and giving him a kiss on the forehead, as I always did. And I said, I'll be here for you as long as I can. I'm still here. Unfortunately, for over the next 3 months, every time I opened my closet, staring me right in the face was that dress blue uniform.